Hello, everyone. I'm Cassidy Carson, co-host of the CC and JT Amateur Hour with my partner, who is around here somewhere, JT Hume. And we are doing another one of our interviews of authors. So on this episode, we are speaking with Justin Eger. So hello, Justin, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you both for having me. I really appreciate being here.
And we're very happy to have you here because you've written quite a few books from what we've seen. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. This year, actually, this July marked my 10th year of writing. I've published 7 books in that time. My most recent one, I'm going to hold up here as the witness. It is the second in a very particular series called The Novels of the Underground. I started working on that series a couple of years ago, just trying to get a feel for what I wanted to do after my initial publishing run of a couple of books. And I think I kind of fell into a nice groove with it, kind of trying to reach out into a different genre while still maintaining my fun with the action adventure kind of stuff. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the new stuff. I'm happy to have been doing this. Hard to believe it's been 10 years, but here we are.
And you have done a lot of interesting things over the years, such as journalism, photography, working at newspapers. How did you end up moving over into fiction writing?
So you're right. I worked as a community journalist for a little over 10 years. It was 11 and change by the time I finally stepped away from that. During kind of the end of that run, I started to get an idea of, okay, maybe I should write a little bit more. Maybe I should do things that are a little bit more creative since I had the mechanics of writing down so much. I used to write 8 stories a week, so I could pound out a couple thousand words without really thinking about it as long as I had the information. So it turned into a challenge of, okay, now can I be creative with that? Can I make up the words rather than just reporting things that happened? So I gave it a try. Had a real bad first experience, but you learn a lot. So then you move into your next one, and that became the first book that I ended up self-publishing back in 2015.
And that must have been quite the challenge going from journalism to fiction because they are such different forms of writing, basically. And I
It
noticed that
is.
you also have done comic books, which you are the first person that we've had on that's done anything related to comic books. Is that a little bit similar to journalism in the way you write, since it's, I guess you're, I don't know, you're boiling it down to whatever you're doing in each panel.
To an extent, yeah, it's closer to screenwriting than anything else, and I'm sure there'll be a million screenwriters who start screaming, it's nothing like that. But in my experience, it was closest to that. I had done a little bit of screenwriting work, helping a friend polish a script, and then comic books is where I really wanted to be. Like when I graduated college, I thought, I'm going to be a comic book writer. This is going to be the thing that I want to do with my life. I want to tell those kind of stories. And again, your first effort is trash. Like I was rejected soundly for many reasons, but you learn from that, you push forward from that. And that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, that's really awesome. Like I'm getting better at this. I know the kind of storytelling I want to tell, the world building I want to do, things like that. And then the comic book industry kind of moved away from where it had been when I was trying to break in, and that no longer became feasible. It just turned into it was pushing the rock uphill every day and it moving 10 feet further down than it had started. So I just pushed away from that a little bit. We had some challenges and some failures there, which is okay. Those things happen. Some of them were out of my control. But from there, I was like, okay, well, how do I translate that into the next step? What do I do next? What do I do where I have something where I have more control? And that turned into being writing the novels, where I had I had to tap an entirely different set of skills, but at the same time, I'm still doing the creative things that I wanted.
Do you feel that your time in newspapers and comics and everything have really helped you with figuring out how to best promote your self-published novels?
Oh God, no, I'm a terrible self-promoter. I'm completely awful at it. Uh, yeah, in those other genres, you tend to have a built-in audience, and not that journalism is a genre, but you know what I mean. Like you have people who are going to buy your product no matter what. You don't have to necessarily sell it as much as you do your own publications and your own work. And moving into self-publishing as an author versus even when I was when we put out our first comic book, there was a mechanism behind us. Like, even though we were independent, we had a publisher who was going to shows while we were going to other shows. There was a system involved that kept things moving in the right direction. But as a self-publisher, it's on your shoulders. You guys know that. You load up the backpack and hope for the best. And I admit that I am terrible at it. I've worked in marketing, so I know how to do it, but promoting yourself is it's a terrible thing. You always want someone else to just kind of pick up that part for you. All I really want to do is sit here and write.
Well, we understand that so
Oh,
well.
we understand so much. Now, I apologize to our listeners and viewers if I repeat something that you said, Justin, but I did want to dive a little bit deeper into The Witness, which you held up. Hold it up again, because we might as well promote it again. See, there it is.
Thank
The Witness. You. Okay. You forwarded us an extract, or actually, you forwarded us the book to us, which we're grateful for, and I was reading into it. Now, I have to tell you, I'm a Bosch fan. I'm a fan of Bosch, Michael Connelly. And I hope I'm not insulting you when I say this. I never saw the series. I just read the books. And I picked up that kind of pace, and I picked up that kind of, I don't want to say just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing, but I did pick up that kind of flavor. Have you read Bosch or what, or something like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is nobody doing better straight procedural writing than Michael Connelly. Like, absolutely bar none. Like, he gets you in, he gets you out, and keeps things moving, and it feels like a television police procedural, which is why Bosch was obviously so popular. And I hope nobody takes offense at hearing that, but it is how his stuff works, and he is an absolute master at it. So I never expected that compliment, but I will take that compliment because that's great. I really struggled with, in some of my earlier efforts, I did struggle with pacing a little bit. So, like, this book and the book preceding it, The Pariah, like, I really wanted to just keep things moving and make sure that people want to turn the next page. And if they get to the next page, they're not looking ahead oh God, how long is this chapter? So they can just keep moving and feels like it runs along with them. So thank you. I'm glad to hear that worked in some way.
No, you actually you described my writing style perfectly. Turn the page. Cece can attest to that, because
years ago.
So some folks like so much exposition, but it's like, to me, it's like, come on, I just want to get, I want to see what's going to happen, and that's, again, and I hope you take the compliment that I'm implying here, that's where I felt that it was coming from too.
No, that's excellent. Like I was saying, when I got into comics, when I got into writing comics, like, that was kind of the effort. Make sure the reader wants to turn the page, and in such a way that the next panel is the most important thing in their lives. Like, just keep going with that. So, like, bringing that into straight fiction or straight genre writing, where you don't have the benefit of the art, but you have the benefit of trying to keep that pace moving, is really excellent. So thank you. I'm glad that worked for you.
And you wrote to us that The Witness is part of a series. Did you intend to write a series, or did the first book just, when it first came out, it's like, you know what, I've got to continue the story, though I hadn't planned to?
So The Witness came out of a weird spot. It was actually the first thing I wrote in what I eventually decided would become a series, even though there is another book before it. It introduces the main character, but it introduces a side character who works in kind of a support capacity. That she's called the archivist. She is the person who and then helps people like the main character, Daniel Brass, find information that he needs to keep his plot moving, to keep his investigations moving. And in turn, she requests aid from certain individuals with special skills like him sometimes. And I wrote this to introduce Daniel, but I wrote this to introduce her as well. And then I realized, as I'm working through different books in this series, I'm like, okay, but isn't it more interesting to go back to the point where you have a character who's never spoken to her, never met with her? So The Pariah does kind of some of that setup work, where there's a main character who's going through this, and he gets a phone that he doesn't necessarily know where it comes from. A friend hands it off to him and says, you're going to need this. And then as he's going along, information starts coming through the phone that is helpful to him. So it builds that, in my opinion, it builds that background. I wanted to have that little bit about who is this and where is this coming from. And then the witness picks up with that a little bit more with entirely separate character, but the archive is still in the background, pulling her strings and moving people along in the right direction.
That's amazing. I used to work in an archives. The fact that you use that phrase for the person it really amuses me, because working in that field, we got a lot of people asking us what we did for a living. And sometimes we'd get things like, oh, you're an activist? You're an anarchist? It's like, no, I'm an archivist. So I don't
Entirely.
know, right? It's a completely different situation. It is, it is fun that, hearing that phrase used for somebody who's basically an information person.
Right. I started out with the idea of an information broker, like, Andrew Vax had a character in the background of his novels who did that same kind of work. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But what if you take it to the next level? Like, I'm not comparing myself to Andrew Vax in any way, but like that's where that idea got birthed. And I'm like, okay, someone who has all this information, what do they do with it and why do they want it? And how do they maintain their own anonymity, because the stuff that they have is volatile? And that's where that came from. So that's very cool.
Oh, that sounds amazing. What is your inspiration for these stories?
For this specific setup, when I started out, backing up a little bit more, I wanted to be a spy fiction writer and a spy thriller writer. I wanted to do the Ludlum thing. I wanted to do not necessarily the Tom Clancy thing, because he's way more technical than I ever would have been. But I wanted that same kind of energy and that same kind of emotion and investment in things. And then when we kind of hit the era of the pandemic, when I was working on these books, when I started this series, like at the heart of it, I'm reading them and I'm writing them and I'm thinking, we don't have a lot of hope. We don't have a lot of faith that there are people out there working towards our best interests, even if we don't know it. How many people are falling through the cracks? And that's where I really started with this whole idea of people working outside the system, because the system has failed so many people. And as I'm like fleshing out those ideas and fleshing out those thoughts, I'm thinking back, my childhood was Knight Rider and the A-Team and shows like that, where characters selflessly worked towards the betterment of other people. When the chips were down, when you had fallen through the cracks, these characters showed up to help. And that's really like, it's childish in its own way, but it's inspirational to look at that and say, okay, so where are those people now? What are those people doing now? And I was just chatting with a friend about it the other day, and it's like, that's missing in a lot of our fiction right now, whether it's genre fiction or not. Like, there isn't a whole lot of hope out there in these things, or there isn't something that you can pick up and feel like, okay, well, when I'm in trouble, who's going to help me? And that's why I wanted these books to really have that effect. There are people out there, they have their own circumstances and their own problems, but they're willing to step in when other people won't, even if the law or the system is working against you. Which in turn ties all the way back to the old Robert Ludlum thing that I'd started with, where one man against a system that is being manipulated. Like, that was the core of Ludlum's thing, and now it's kind of shifting that a little bit, but a little bit closer on the ground, if that makes sense.
No, that is very classic. And now that you mention it, fiction writing has changed quite a bit. The idea of there being a hopeful future, because, like you said, the pandemic was really hard for everybody. And so you mentioned, assume you were doing a lot of just writing during the pandemic, or were you working at any other jobs while you've been writing?
I sold appliances through the entirety of the pandemic. I had been selling appliances for a handful of years. Writing jobs were obviously hard to come by at the time. When I left journalism, I had done so based on a relocation, and where we moved to was not welcoming to either outsiders or reporters. So I was absolutely screwed when I got there. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go work in a hardware store and sell appliances. Worked my way up into that position, got real good at it, but at night I would come home and I would write these stories and I would keep going. So as we're dealing with the pandemic and as I'm dealing with people who are frustrating in their selfishness, to put it mildly, like as some people would just go out and be difficult for the sake of being difficult, I'm writing that, I'm looking at, and I'm like, where are the people, where are the stories that tie back to, God, can't we just be good to each other? Can't we just help each other, lift each other up a little bit, reach out a hand when someone's struggling. So which is funny because that's where all this came from. And at the time I hadn't really thought about it, but then as I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, that's where it all came from.
It is funny how life inspires us that way.
Definitely.
So I guess at this point we can move into the second portion of our interview here, and we'll do the fun questions. Basically, we based these on the James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio questions at the end of his episode. So
Fantastic.
So moving on with that, what was your I am a real honest to goodness writer moment?
That one came when we published our first comic book. I worked with my friend Glenn Klimek, who was an amazing artist. We published a book called Fugitive Comics. And I had mentioned earlier, it was like there was a machine behind that. And that's why it felt more real to be a writer at that point, was because somebody had taken time and energy to invest in putting artwork down for the thing that I had written. Somebody had invested energy in coloring it. Somebody had put the effort into getting it published and helping us market it. So when we took those out of the box and we looked at them that day, like my wife has a picture of Glenn and I, sitting there holding one. And it's like, yeah, that's the moment where it really clicked. Like somebody believed enough in what we're doing to call us a writer and call us an artist, and we could call ourselves professionals.
Have to say, holding those for the first time is definitely a wonderful moment.
Yeah, that's a nice section to just be like, oh yeah, okay, we did it. Like here it is. Somebody believed.
Yep. So you kind of talked about this a little bit, but do you have a specific writing role model and why?
A lot. Everybody I read, I try to pick up something from. Yeah, and that's just old habit from way back in college when my professors, God bless them, made me read everything under the sun. So it was one of those things where I try to grab something from everybody, but on the professional end of it, I was thinking about this, and there's an author named Brett Battles. He does spy fiction, and he kind of became the role model for me at the time because I had read his first couple of books, and they were amazing. Barry Award nominated first book, Barry Award winning second book. And he's doing the things that I kind of wanted to do. And I was like, well, I'm not that good. I know I'm not that good. Maybe I'll get there at some point, but this is the guy. I'm following what he's doing. I'm paying attention to what he's doing so I can learn something from it. And publishing kind of did its own thing. And we've all known authors that have lost their deals or whatever. Now, I don't know him personally. I want to stress that. It's just, his fourth book came along and all of a sudden there wasn't a fifth book. He's been running this series. It's been a popular series and an award-winning series, but all of a sudden he's gone from the traditional publishing market. And then I see he's doing CreateSpace. And, one of the first people that I had ever seen to do CreateSpace, which we now know is Kindle Direct, which is what I use. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, okay, he's made the jump. Whether he's made that jump on his own or he was kind of pushed that way, he decided to believe in himself and believe in his stories and his characters enough to keep going. A lot of authors may have turned away or tried something different, but he was like, I'm not done with this. I'm not done with Jonathan Quinn. I'm not done with these characters. And he went on and published, 10 books, 10, 15 books over the last couple of years. And he built his own world and his own universe and characters that go on to do other things, and it feels like a real lived-in world. But I admired the fact that he took that first step and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to go full indie, and that's how it'll be. And that's what prompted me to be like, okay, I'm not that good. Maybe I'll never be that good, but there's no reason I can't take that plunge too.
It is definitely a plunge because, boy, there's so much work involved in it.
Yes. Yeah, I never imagined. And even when we were doing comics, we were like, we could do this ourselves. Our publisher had folded at one point, and we were like, we can do this. We know we can do this. But we looked at each other and was, yeah, but it's so much nicer when somebody else just picks up one small portion of that load. And I was like, oh, no, that's fine. I'll just do it all myself in books. That's great. That's a brilliant marketing plan.
Yes, we feel you there. So what do you love about writing?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, let's talk about all the horrible stuff and then try to circle back. I really do love when a story beat clicks together. It'll never be when I'm sitting at the keyboard working on it, but it will be when I'm going and doing that beautifully mundane thing, whatever it is. Like I'm taking a shower, I go for a jog, and all of a sudden an answer comes to me like that. And I'm like, oh God, I've been struggling this for 3 weeks. and it clicks. And all of a sudden, everything else makes sense from whatever point I'm at, forward and back. Like, okay, perfect. And that is like the most joyous, uplifting sense of relief that I have ever felt, is knowing that, oh God, I can do this. Like, I know what I'm doing, and the story will prove it if I do it well.
Yeah, it's good to have faith in yourself.
Yeah, and I have very little, so which will probably come up later in the discussion.
So maybe that will come up in the next question. What do you actually dread about writing?
My first initial answer for this when I was thinking about it was, staring down the blank page, but at the same time, the blank page means I haven't screwed it up yet. So I was like, okay, that isn't that bad, but there is a point, and my wife, God love her, will attest to this. I generally write a first draft over the course of about 3 months. Like, that's just my timeline. It's how it works for me. Keeps me moving, keeps me on a schedule, everything goes well. And without fail, when I hit week 6, I think, I am stupid, I am terrible, I am the worst person ever, why am I doing this? This is the dumbest thing ever, I should just delete it. Without fail, it hits at the exact same time. Like, this past thing that I was working on, I was like, you know what, I'm going to mark it on the calendar and see. I'm going to circle the date, and then I'm going to hide this calendar, and I'm going to pull it back out, and yep, there it was. Oh, damn.
Oh my gosh.
Pardon my French, but yeah. There it is. That is the worst, like, because I know it's coming, and I know I'll get over it, but there's a week where I'm like, oh, this is terrible.
That's actually very relatable. And we've gotten so many answers to that question. A lot of people will say it's marketing, which I totally agree with. But
Don't count
that
that as
middle part.
that is part of everything else.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so what single significant life experience affects your writing for good or bad?
I struggle with this one because, like, there's an obvious answer, right? Like, there's always the big bad tragedy thing that happens, but I was reading an interview with Greg Rucka, who is another author, and he had said the funny thing about a lot of writing is it's your therapy and you don't really realize it. And I'm paraphrasing the heck out of this, but he's like, he's working through his last book, and he is 2/3 of the way through the book before he realizes that he's dealing with the death of his father by writing it out on the page. Not necessarily that exact scenario, but that's how he's processing it. And I feel like that every one of my books like, thinking about it, will tie back to some weird event, like, me moving away from my hometown, or dealing with the death of my own father, or losing a job. Like, all of a sudden, like, all those pieces come back. So each book is like this weird little bookmark in the last 10 years where I'm like, oh, that's where that came from, when I bother to sit and think about it. So I don't think it's necessarily one big motivating thing, but all the little things that come along with living your basic life that I'm just trying to work through as I write stuff out.
That's actually a very excellent answer to that question. I never thought about it, but I'm actually releasing a book tomorrow, and I think a little bit of the mother-daughter relationship in there is something I'm working at a little therapeutically, because my mother passed away. So the daughter is having the relationship with her mother that I wish I had had. So actually,
Well,
your answer to that
congratulations on the
question,
book. I'm sorry that you have to deal with that, because that is a terrible feeling when your parent is no longer around. You live in an entirely different world. But yeah, exactly. That is the point where it's like, that's how I'm solving this problem in my head.
right?
I guess it's cheaper than therapy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question, because we put a lot of time, energy, and money into these books, so it ends up being expensive in a lot of ways.
Valued our time the way we're supposed to, we would be poor forever.
Yes, we would.
We'd never
So
get paid what we're.
would you
Oh, I'm
recommend the
sorry.
writing life to a loved one, and
Oh,
why?
hell no. I've actually had this conversation with one of my nieces. I would not. I would never ever recommend this, with this caveat. No matter what I say, no matter how bad I say it is, no matter what the struggles that you and I and JT were all facing, if we really believe in it, we're going to do it anyway. No one's going to convince you otherwise, because you have that passion and that motivation to tell a story. You may not ever have an audience for it. You may have an audience of 10, you may have an audience of 100 or 100,000, but if you really believe in telling that story, you're going to do it anyway, no matter what me, you, any of us say. And that, to me, is the hallmark of a true writer, because I never would have, I've met plenty of writers over the years. I didn't listen to a damn one of them when I just said, no, I'm going to do it anyway. because I believed that I have to tell some of these stories. I want people to be entertained by them. So as much as I would say no, I hope that truly people will ignore me and just.
That's another good point. We actually, one of our kids is also a writer, and
Oh, God bless them.
we never told her, not to do it, but
Right.
she's come to see for herself how difficult it is, and she's published a lot more books than we have. So it's,
Good for her. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, she's
Has she been
prolific.
on the program? Has she hopped in?
No, not yet. Maybe someday we'll get her, but she's kind of at a point where she's hiding out from the public.
Good for her. That is a smart play as well.
Yes,
Manufacture your mysterious aura for as long as possible.
definitely. So our final question: what is something unexpected in your past that we won't see in your bio?
Wow. I just laid most of it out there. I mean, I sold appliances for a living, for God's sake. Like, that is out there. I'll end on something fun. My dad was into cars. Like, he worked on cars, repaired cars. And while I am no good at any of that, I did inherit his lead foot. So if you see me on the road, you didn't see me for very long. So that's something I will share in that regard.
So you like speed both in the car and in your writing then?
Absolutely, yes. Now, trying to merge the two, writing a very fast car scene in a book is a pain in the butt, but we're trying. So here we go.
Okay. This is a great cover. There's just so much going on. Before we sign off, can you dive into this cover just a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. My friend and former coworker, his name is Andrew Varenhorst. You can find him on Instagram. Andrew Varenhorst, easy enough to find. He did this cover for me, and he did The Pariah as well as one of my Neptune books, the last in that trilogy. We had talked a lot about trying to come up with something that would thematically link all the underground novels, like The Pariah and The Witness and the books that are to come, hopefully. And he came up with this. We had talked, probably a dozen different ideas, kicked him around, and this was none of them. And he came back with this the one day, this kind of idea with the person in the silhouette and the cracked background with the city. And he came back with that, and he was like, I think this works. Yeah, this works. This works exactly. So they will all visually link together, which is really nice. They all look very fancy. They've all got that kind of shattered glass look to, which really kind of speaks to some of the attitude of people falling through the cracks, right? So this is the person who's trying to pull all that together. And Andrew did an amazing job. I cannot thank him enough. Find his Instagram, follow his stuff. He makes amazing art all the time. And eventually he will sell some of it so we can all reward him for being an amazing artist. So thank you for bringing that up.
Excellent. So where can we find you on the World Wide Web, the information superhighway, your website, your social media? Give us the 411.
The website is a work in progress. I will hopefully get one running sooner rather than later, but I've been saying that for years because I'm terrible about it. I am on BlueSky. That is pretty much the only social media I use directly. I am at fugitivecourier.bsky.com. Just search for Fugitive Courier. You'll find me. It's an old gamer tag that just kind of stuck with me over the years, so I've just left that be my social media tag. And my books are all on Amazon. Most of them, if not all of them, should be free on Kindle Direct. If you happen to have that and you want to give one a try before you dive in and spend the cash, by all means, that's what the whole system is for. But find me on BlueSky, come give me a yell, give me a shout, make fun of me, whatever you want to do, I'm down. The more the merrier, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you so much, Justin. We really appreciate you being here. And now comes our commercial. You can find this and other podcast episodes at www.carsonhume.com, which also links to all of our books. And hopefully you will check us out there and come back and check out all of the fun interviews that we are doing with authors like Justin Eger. Thank you again, Justin, for being with us today, and we hope you all have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.